I was experiencing symptoms around the time that Rachel Bland had died, 3 years ago. And I'd been experiencing them for about 6 or 7 months, and they got particularly bad around this time. And I was thinking to myself, who is this Bowel Babe? She was on the screen, she was on the TV everywhere because obviously, Rachel had died. And I thought, let me just follow her on Instagram. And I did. And I just ended up randomly listening to her story on the podcast. And it struck me really, really, really clearly. We were similar in age. We both had 2 kids, both lived in London. We were both runners. I had just the previous year, had run a half marathon. We were both healthy. We didn't look like, we could have cancer. And I heard her story and I thought, oh my God, if she can get cancer, then, and so can I. And that's when I started taking my symptoms really seriously. And I kind of rang my GP the next day. It's difficult to know. Bowel cancer symptoms are very similar to other types of things like IBS symptoms. So it's really easy to not know if it's actually cancer because it's so similar to other symptoms. So in my head, I was healthy. And I think looking at Deborah and thinking, well, you look healthy too, and you've just been diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer. It really, really made me think, goodness, And remember, I was 38 when I was diagnosed. Deborah was 35. This is still a very rare disease for young people under the age of 50. The majority of people are diagnosed and over 50 and over 60s and over 70. So she was just, she made you think, goodness, don't just rest on your laurels and think, well, I'm a runner. I eat loads of veg. I don't eat loads of processed meat. She made you think, don't just assume that you're healthy, that you can't get bowel cancer, because you can. It happened to her and it happened to me.
In the recent weeks, with everybody, paying tribute to her bravery and all the money she's raised, she spoke quite a lot about how she wasn't brave. She just had no choice but to face it. And, I think most people would disagree. She was incredibly brave. And I think what she chose to do was make the best out of that situation and all that fundraising, saving lives like yours as well. We were just looking at pictures of you two together. What was she like when you met her? And give us a sense of the kind of advice she gave you.
She was incredible because, I had started following her and I was messaging her, and she was messaging back. She had lots of followers, but she was just so kind and so sweet and was giving me advice when I was in hospital, saying, what was your, what was the size of your tumour? And actually, when we met up, she was so lovely. She was like, come in the picture, let's take a selfie. And she was so sweet. We were comparing sort of tumour sizes. She was like, oh, mine was 6.5 centimetres. And I was like, oh, God, mine was 7. And the one thing she said was that I am so pleased that you are the reason why I do this work, because you are an early stage survivor. You didn't have to have chemotherapy. Your surgery was, has cured you. And, if I've had a part in that, it's amazing. And I said, gave her a hug and, we sort of giggled. She was so lively. She had so much energy. She had just, and remember, she was living with cancer. She was living so well with this disease and the campaigning. So, every day talking about it pretty much. Her career was talking about it. And that's very emotionally draining. But she still had so much time for people, and particularly in the cancer community. She was in contact with lots of people, and she was a huge part of the online cancer community. I mean, the cancer community is really going to be a completely different place without her. It really is.
Well, you'll always remember her, I presume, as the woman who saved your life. The reason we're talking to you today is because of Deborah James.
I often wonder, why did I listen to that podcast? I didn't know anyone in my life who had cancer. There was no reason for me to believe I would have cancer. And I often think, gosh, if I hadn't have listened to that podcast, nobody around me was saying, oh, your symptoms might be cancer. They were all saying, oh, don't worry, it will be fine. But there was something inside me that thought, okay, let me just be curious. And that was the difference between me keeping on going, and who knows what would have happened. My cancer might have spread. I don't know. We will never know. But all I know is that I trusted my body and my instinct, And I thought something isn't right. And that was always her message. Know your body. If it doesn't feel right, get checked out. You must do that, because it will save your life.